If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.
Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In December of 1971, the United States District Court for Western District of Pennsylvania received a civil rights complaint. The plaintiff was Gerald Mayo, a 22-year-old inmate at Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh. The defendant was Satan and his staff. The complaint was filed under multiple sections of the United States Code, mainly 18 U.S.C. and 24128 U.S.C., among other federal civil rights statutes. It alleged, in the precise language of federal pleading, that Satan had on numerous occasions caused plaintiff misery and unwarranted threats against the will of the plaintiff, that Satan had placed deliberate obstacles in his path and had caused plaintiff downfall, and that by reason of these acts, Satan had deprived him of his constitutional rights. Gerald Mayo was asking the federal court to order the Prince of Darkness to stop. The judge, United States District Judge Gerald J. Weber, took the case seriously enough to write a formal opinion. Our history brief today returns to history versus Hollywood and the movie Gladiator 2. A quick word from our sponsors.
Everyone treats summer like it owes you happiness. Long days, pool parties, your best life on a loop. So what does it mean when you feel worse? The summer blues are real. It's why summer is one of the busiest stretches of the year for people starting therapy. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Growth therapy is for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach. It's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
This day in history. On August 15th, 1947, India gained its independence from British rule after nearly 2 centuries of colonial control. The achievement, led in large part through the nonviolent movement inspired by Gandhi, marked the birth of the world's largest democracy. On August 15th, 1914, the Panama Canal officially opened to traffic, creating a vital link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and transforming global trade. Story of the day. Before we get to the opinion, a word about Gerald Mayo himself. He is not a figure the historical record illuminates generously. What we do know is that he was 22, incarcerated, and apparently at a low point sufficient to produce the conclusion that the proper response to his situation was a federal civil rights lawsuit against the embodiment of cosmic evil. He filed without a lawyer, representing himself. He asked to proceed without being able to afford the costs of the lawsuit and asked that they be waived. This detail matters because it means that the court could not simply dismiss the case for failure to pay fees. It had to actually consider whether the case had any merit. And Judge Weber, to his considerable credit, actually considered it. Judge Weber's opinion is a masterpiece of judicial restraint applied to an inherently unrestrainable subject. He began with admirable composure by acknowledging the threshold question of jurisdiction. The Western District of Pennsylvania covers a specific geographic area. Before a federal court can hear a case, it must establish that the defendant is subject to its jurisdiction, that there is some connection between the defendant and the district. The question of whether Satan maintained a residence, a place of business, or any legal, cognizable connection to the Western District of Pennsylvania had never previously been litigated. Judge Weber noted, with appropriate judicial caution, that this question was unresolved. He also noted, and this is where the opinion begins to ascend into literature, that the nearest thing he could find to a precedent was the short story The Devil and Daniel Webster by Stephen Vincent Benet, in which Satan appeared as a plaintiff in a mortgage foreclosure action in New Hampshire. In that story, Daniel Webster had contended that Satan, as a foreign prince, could not sue in American courts. Judge Weber observed that he need not go so far, but he noted that in Benet's account, Satan had claimed to be an American, which, should he appear before the court, might stop him from arguing a lack of personal jurisdiction. This is a federal judge citing a short story as quasi-precedent in civil rights case against the devil. It gets better though. The next problem was service of process. Before a defendant can be required to appear in court, they must be formally notified of the lawsuit, served with the complaint and a summons to appear. In federal court, this service is executed by the United States Marshal Service. Judge Weber observed that the plaintiff had provided no instructions whatsoever for how the United States Marshal might locate, identify, and serve process on Satan and his staff. He directed Mayo that should he wish to pursue the action further, he must provide the Marshal with specific instructions, including an address or some other means of notification. This is a federal court asking a prisoner in Pittsburgh to provide a mailing address for Lucifer. Anyway, the opinion does not record whether Mayo ever supplied one. There was also the question of class action certification. Judge Weber noted, with what one imagines was a completely straight face, that 3 of the 4 requirements for a class action suit appeared to be met. The class of people allegedly harmed by Satan's activities was numerous, all of humanity more or less. There were common questions of law and fact. The plaintiff's claims were typical of the class. The fourth requirement, that the representative party be able to fairly and adequately protect the interests of the class, was where things got complicated. Judge Weber expressed doubt that a single prisoner in Pittsburgh could adequately represent the legal interests of all human beings allegedly wronged by the Prince of Darkness. The opinion does not elaborate, and it does not need to. The ultimate disposition of the case was straightforward. Given, as Judge Weber put it, the difficulties of effectuating service of process and the uncertainty of whether the defendant would appear, the court had no choice but to deny Mayo's petition to proceed in a formal court case. The case was not dismissed because it was frivolous. It was not dismissed because Satan demonstrably does not exist. It was dismissed because the federal marshals could not produce the devil, and the plaintiff had failed to explain how they might. The case is officially cited as United States Gerald Mayo versus Satan and his staff, 54 FRD 282, Western District of Pennsylvania, December 3rd, 1971. It is in the Federal Rules Decisions Reporter. It is real law. The Gerald Mayo case has become, in the decades since, something of a beloved artifact in American legal culture. It is taught in law schools, not as a model of successful litigation, obviously, but as an illustration of how federal courts handle procedural questions with unusual defendants. It demonstrates with accidental brilliance that American courts take seriously the right of any person, including an incarcerated 22-year-old with no money and a grievance against the cosmos, to petition the judiciary. The court did not say this is ridiculous, get out. The court said, we have considered your case carefully, and we have identified several procedural obstacles to its prosecution, and we would like to help you address them if you can. That is not a small thing. That is a system taking seriously its own commitment to equal access to justice, even when the defendant is the father of lies. The History Brief. When Ridley Scott released Gladiator in 2000, historians had mixed feelings. The movie was spectacular. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. It sparked renewed public interest in ancient Rome. It also played very fast and loose with the facts. 24 years later, Gladiator 2 does much the same thing. How historically accurate is it? Well, let's separate the history from Hollywood. The sequel is set about 16 years after the events of the first film, during the reign of Emperors Caracalla and Geta. That much is grounded in history. Caracalla and Geta really were brothers who ruled the Roman Empire together after the death of their father, Emperor Severus, and they absolutely hated each other. In fact, after less than a year of co rule, Caracalla had Geta murdered in their own mother's arms. He then launched a campaign to erase his brother from history, destroying statues and chiseling his name off monuments. That part of Roman history is every bit as dramatic as the movie. But then Hollywood takes over. The film centers on Lucius, the young nephew of Commodus from the original movie. In Gladiator 2, Lucius grows up to become a gladiator and eventually challenges the empire itself. It is a compelling story, but there is no historical evidence that the real Lucius Verus, whose full name was Lucius Aurelius Verus, ever fought as a gladiator or led a rebellion. In reality, he lived a relatively quiet, aristocratic life far from the arena. Then there are the gladiatorial battles themselves. The movie delivers exactly what audiences expect: massive spectacles featuring exotic animals, elaborate set pieces, and over the top action. Some of that is historically grounded. Romans really did stage hunts involving lions, leopards, bears, and even rhinoceroses. They recreated famous battles. They flooded arenas on rare occasions for mock naval engagements, though historians debate exactly how often this occurred in the Colosseum itself. But the film goes much further. Without spoiling every scene, let's just say that some of the arena spectacles belong more to fantasy than archaeology. The combat is also highly stylized. Real gladiators were valuable investments. They received extensive training, specialized equipment, and medical care. Owners generally did not want them dying every afternoon. Despite popular belief, most gladiatorial matches did not end in death. A trained gladiator represented years of investment. Killing one unnecessarily made little economic sense. So, why does Gladiator 2 change so much? Well, because it's trying to tell an emotional story, not produce a documentary. Like its predecessor, it captures certain truths remarkably well: the grandeur of imperial Rome, the brutality of political power, or the importance of public entertainment. Those feel authentic. The specific characters and events, well, not so much. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links are available on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different series and videos that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
Jerry is changing the way people think about car insurance. For people who like to save or just shop smarter, that change already happened. With Jerry, you're not locked into a policy that auto-renews. Reshop anytime by comparing up to 20 quotes side by side and switch, all in the app. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry save over $1,300 a year on average. You'll probably be the first one you know to use it, which makes you the smartest friend in the group. Download Jerry today.